You're now watching the Danny Mac Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome back to the Danny Mac Podcast on the Bet Rivers Podcast Network as we continue to inch our way to the NFL Draft, and Bears fans can't get enough of this conversation. So let's bring in a guy who made some news in Chicago and around the country a couple of weeks ago prior to the Combine. He spent one of his 8 NFL seasons in a Bears uniform. Former running back Merril Hoge, the former Idaho State Bengal, is with me today. Merril, thanks for the time. And as I mentioned to you briefly before we got started here, Bears fans can't get enough conversation about this upcoming draft, because sitting at the number 1 and number 9, they are just salivating over the opportunity to get better in a hurry. What do you remember about your short time spent in Chicago, how passionate Bears fans are about their team?
Well, listen, it's actually one of my I use the word regret. It's not I guess regret's probably not unfortunate parts of my career, because when I went to Chicago, Walter Payton was my favorite player as a kid. Okay, so I have a litany. I'm looking over my Chicago Bear lamp right now. I got my Walter Payton signed helmet here. I mean, so to go there was like being rejuvenated and being a kid all over again, and like being drafted in the first round of the Chicago Bears. It was like a dream come true. It was like I could never believe. Well, I'll give you an example. My favorite team was the Pittsburgh Steelers when I was a kid, and Walter Payton was my favorite player. And when I was a kid, I had number 11 in youth football. And then when I got to junior high, I had to make a decision. And I was like, gal, if I ever play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't want to be wearing number 32, because I couldn't wear 32 when I was there. And if I ever go to play in Chicago, I can't have 34. So I picked 33, so I'd be in the middle. And not ever thinking in a million years I get to play for both of those teams. And then to get, when I was a free agent, and actually the Bears called me the night before free agency, because I was actually going to San Francisco. I was going to be a 49er, and the Bears called, and I was like, I'm at my age. I thought my agent was joking. I'm like, why would the Bears be called? They just signed Ironhead Haywood. I'm like, why would they? What would they? Anyway, so it was part of a completion of a dream, to be honest with you. And my time there, even though it was short, I still I played there my second preseason game. I understand the passion for the Bears. So this conversation is all about the Bear fan wanting a championship. That's what it's about. That's what every team wants, but the Bears in particular have a unique fan base, a passionate fan base, a fun fan base. And even though my time was short there, it is very memorable, very memorable.
It was the last time, by the way, the 94 season was punctuated with a playoff victory over the Vikings at the Metrodome. That's the last time the Bears have won a road playoff game, Merril.
Right.
That's some time ago now.
Very true. So, you can see that, this is why, and this is part of the dynamics that they're dealing with, where you just can't make a mistake, and this is not a perfect science. And there's a lot of human error in this process. And some of that is self-inflicted. And that is where I've always felt with the draft, with teams, they say they can fix, I got so many times I hear coaches, and listen, I've coached too, okay, and I've scouted. I've been in every phase of this. It isn't that I just played in the National Football League. I've been doing this evaluation process for nearly 40 years. I've coached at every level. I've been in scouting departments. I've worked with Mike Ditka and I worked together for 10 years. John Gruden, Jimmy Johnson, Bill Parcells, played for Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. And what my experience has taught me is there's some things that you just can't fix. And so many times people think you can. And really good organizations and good coaches, and actually, I don't know any organization that's really established these principles of what we can't fix, because everybody feels like they can. Okay, I'll give you an example. Everybody would know on this show, your show as a football fan, you can't give somebody speed, correct? Everybody knows that. Okay, so why can you all of a sudden give somebody instincts? You can give somebody toughness. You can fix stupid. You can give them accuracy. All these things that you can't. If they don't have them, you can't give it to them. But I can't tell you how everybody has made a mistake. Every organization has made the mistakes. Like, we'll fix that. I can correct that. I'll make that happen. And that's where you get in trouble is, you're trying to fix things you can't, and you draft people based on thinking you're going to fix them. And then figuring all of that out based on the skill set they need to have and potentially could have to play in the National Football League. That's why, like when I watch a kid in college, I'm not watching where he's playing. I'm watching where he's going to play. And it's a completely different environment. And most fans don't understand that the NFL environment, the field is completely different. Okay, now the lengths and widths are the same, but once you move those hash marks, which are wide in college, and you move them like this, the game now becomes in the middle. Passing game changes, running game changes. The defenses they face, yes, they've seen a 4-3 and a 3-4 and all those things and cover 2. Not to the level they're about to. The overall pressures they're going to see, the schemes, the disguising, never seen anything like that. And then in Caleb's case, he has run a pure college system the entire career. Okay, that's about to change. There's some elements of college that exist in the NFL, but a small percentage. The NFL is about, you got to create explosive plays. You got to attack the entire field. You can't just bubble screen yourself and RPO yourself on the sideline all day long. It's just not going to happen, And so in the NFL, how you must successfully play, you have to play from the pocket. At the end of the day, no matter how dynamic you are in college, know how many trophies you won in college, and you can win those in a variety of ways, which he has done. You're not going to play like that in the NFL. There's two guys in about 5 years that have come in this league and had a polished skill set that gave them a shot to transition pretty well. And that was Joe Burrow and C.J. Stroud. And their ability to play from the pocket. And these are the two things that I really look for that are the most important aspects to have a chance. I'm not saying you're going to succeed with these two things. Just a chance. You got to be accurate, and you got to be a good processor, and they have to be woven as one. Like you can't have one out of there. You can't be accurate, but I'm not a good processor. That's not going to work. You can't be somewhat accurate, but a very good processor. That's not going to work. You have to have that. Then you start building from there. Then your pocket awareness, your presence, your mobility, your arm strength, your toughness, all of that. Now you start to build on a guy. So when I look at Caleb, that is the one area that he is weakest at from the pocket. Now, when I say that, let's go to his accuracy. Actually, his accuracy is elite. I'm like, as compared to what I've seen over 40 years, it is elite. So that's a really good thing. His processing is, I call it a concern, because what he'll do in the pocket, sometimes he'll throw the football and sometimes he won't. Now, keep in mind, sometimes he has 3 and 4 seconds, which is non-existent in the NFL. So in the NFL, it's about 2 seconds, a little over 2 seconds, roughly, and it's dirty. And the pockets can, got traffic around you. College, you don't have that a lot. That's why you got to search through and filter all of those things that give you an example of what he's going to see and how does he function in that. So when it is dirty, he has won a Heisman Trophy. He's actually had a lot of success by escaping. And he's actually very elusive. People say, he's Patrick Mahomes. Well, actually, he's more elusive than Patrick Mahomes. So does that make him better than Patrick Mahomes? Absolutely not. Okay. And actually, there's nothing of Patrick Mahomes that you go, well, that's similar to Patrick when he was in Texas Tech. That being said, so how he plays from the pocket is going to be the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge for the Bears and for him. And that's going to take really good coaching, a commitment to the player, and a few years. Because this is not going to happen. Because I actually like a guy that has his mobility, because he can keep things alive for you in a young growth spurt, where a guy with no mobility, might be physically destroyed before, his 2 years are up. So I do like that. But what happens if they get leaning on that too much, which he has played with that, he's had success with that, you can never break it. And then you got to learn to play from the pocket, and you can never get to where you're most efficient at the end of the day. And so that's his biggest learning curve. And that's a big learning curve too. And if we use Patrick Mahomes, he was a wild stallion. He came in the league and he had to have these things happen, which he did. Some of the best coaching in the history of football, a playoff team, a great mentor, Alex Smith, and he sat a year. Of all the things I just said, none of that is coming Caleb Williams' way. You and I, we just talked about the fan base. What is the fan base going to think? And keep in mind, you guys messed up on him. You guys went and got Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. So everybody knows that story. And what is everybody saying? He's our Patrick Mahomes, so now we're going to win. Okay, quarterbacks don't win you championships. Teams win championships. I'm not minimizing the quarterback. They're important, and it's a vital position, and they got to function very well. But teams win championships. So there's just a lot there. And is he tough mentally? Is he, where's his mental toughness? Because that is going to be tested. Is he entitled? There's a lot of things that you got to know from the makeup of the mental side of a kid and the toughness of a kid. And can he handle what's going to? Is he going to be coachable and teachable? Is he going to be able to realize something of his strength is going to have to be in the pecking order of number 4, not number 1? And to reduce that and change that and manage that is just it's a daunting task. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm just saying it's a daunting task. And if you think that just getting him, you're now going to win Super Bowls, your hearts are going to be broken again because you need a lot more than just that.
The Bears with the 1st and 9th picks as we sit here today. Let me make you the general manager. You know what this team's needs are, and you're aware of the history at the quarterback position being, shall we say, thin. What would you do with the 1 and the 9?
Well, I think the first thing, when everybody's talking about trade or there's got to trade, here's the thing that cracks me up. Okay, everybody acts like there's 31 other teams that want to trade with you. There might be none. I mean, you could trade. You want to trade all you want. If nobody wants to trade with you, what are you going to do? There's a chance that somebody doesn't want to trade for what, say, the Bears think that they need. That could very well happen. Okay. Now, listen, and there's all these other things that people don't understand. They probably hear about, you probably talk a little bit about. So there's these financial, things that make you make decisions too, where you are right now with Justin Fields. Now, clearly you could keep both. Well, let's say you can't trade him, Justin Fields. Let's say you got to keep him. Now, if you really think that the guy that you just drafted, you probably know he's coveted by a lot of other teams. Having 1 year of sitting there and developing is not going to be a harmful thing. Actually, you're going to increase your trade bait with both guys. Let's back up a little bit. So let's say you can't trade anybody, you got to have both guys. I don't think that's a bad deal. Honestly, do not think that's a bad deal. I will tell you this: when Justin Fields came out, he showed, when he looked at his overall skill set and from all the things I just described, man, he was not far. I mean, he wasn't a very polished guy. That was the real biggest problem. He was really raw. But the one thing that he couldn't afford is change. And what has he had every single year? And I cannot tell you the difference what change does to players. You change coordinators. This will be his 4th new coordinator, right? In 4 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I've ever heard that. It's maybe happened. I'm sure it's happened. But I just can tell you from my own changes in my own career how that made a difference. Once you got established, I've been established in a career in a system for 5 years, and then it got changed to another system, then another system. And then I went to the Bears with another system, and I'm going to tell you this: I was never as polished a player, as good a player as the 5 years I got to spend in one. And that is true for every position. It ain't just the quarterback. That kid hasn't had a chance from that perspective. And that has to be fair in the evaluation. So let's just say, and I'm not with him in the meeting rooms too, and there's value there that none of us have, that they could tell you, is he really a mentally tough kid, a smart kid? Does he pay the price and do what was required to be our leader? Okay, so we don't know it, but let's say it is, and we keep him. I think there is absolutely, the things I've just talked about, Caleb Williams, the best thing for Caleb Williams would be that one of the hardest things, yet best in his career, would probably be to sit there and have to learn. So I keep them both. I'd keep them both. If I don't get the trade I want, I'd keep them both. Justin Fields, we'll let you. I would anoint him as my star because that's we left at the season as a star. That's who it is. Unless Caleb Williams beats him out and does something that it really proves to me that he is just light years ahead of him. But let's say my goal is to groom him and develop him, and then I'm gonna do the same thing with Justin. I'm gonna develop him. So I'm gonna have trade bait at the end of the deal that's better than it is right now. And then at number 9, I haven't looked at enough players to really say, hey, who would I pick at 9? I know receivers are really deep. There's a few guys that would be there, that would help your offense be explosive, because that's the part of offense that you have, in your own division. The team that they built themselves on the ground game first, and then they just worked their way up. But the one thing that they were missing is they just hadn't have any explosiveness to their offense. Eventually, they got that, and that's the Lions. Once Detroit got that, man, they became complete. But it wasn't until they got that they became complete as an offense. And so I would look for a guy like that in your first couple of picks. But like I said, we got a team. We got to build a team here. Okay, it's not just being explosive offensively. So knowing what resources I have at this point, having not looked at every single guy that the Bears have looked at, and I won't even get to. There's just no way one person can do it all. But there would be a scenario that I would be comfortable with based on things I don't control. And I go back to this trade, and everybody thinks, well, just everybody wants to trade. That's not true, man. Bears want to trade. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to trade with you. So what do? And I think that what you could do, and it's not a bad thing, and I think it would work out best for everybody, quite honestly. I'd probably get more for Justin Fields in the process, and I have actually more power at the end of the season than I would at draft day.
I want to follow up your idea of drafting Williams and keeping Fields, because that's a scenario that does get tossed around. Dan Hampton, the Hall of Famer, told me a few weeks ago he would love to see that happen. Let them compete. I hear the counter argument, well, it's Fields' locker room. They're very comfortable with him. That has the potential to change. I mean, if this kid from USC comes in and starts lighting it up, they're going to like him as well. How would you see the coaching staff handling that situation if they were to get them both? And I agree with what you said. Trade value goes up for one of them, if not both of them, once you start having injuries once we get to September. And I think of the things you could do creatively with Justin Fields maybe playing in the slot on occasion. If Caleb Williams is ready to go, to get him the ball in space, he could be quite a gadget player. But what do you see as pitfalls from a coaching staff standpoint on handling that locker room if they were to go to camp with both players?
Well, the only downfall is if you ignore it. I've been in environments like that before, and the coach that gets up and says, okay, here's where we stand. As things may shift, but let's say Justin gets hurt. Let's say Caleb, let's say they did draft him and Caleb becomes, starts playing well. How you handle that as the leader of that team will dictate that. It's usually the coaches that ignore it, and act like it's not a problem. And, the locker room, there's a lot of coaches, and I believe the locker room is the players' locker room, but that's the players. As far as a team, I'm responsible for the team. I lead our team. I direct our team. So how that coach handles it and addresses it and constantly stays on top of it, I don't think becomes an issue. I really don't. Players, when you get them in a meeting room, and you're already in charge already, they're going to listen to you. And if you're going to give direction and proper guidance and you're consistent with that and you model that, you're not going to have a problem.
Let's talk about your favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson is on board. His skills, I sold my Russell Wilson stock his last year in Seattle. But if there's anybody who can get him rechanneled and make him more of a team guy, which did not go with him to Denver and certainly isn't going from Denver to Pittsburgh, it's Mike Tomlin. I like that mix. What do you think?
Well, I do too. I think Mike, is probably the ideal guy to keep him in line and keep him a part of the team, not the team. And that's where I think Russell went awry, especially after they won the Super Bowl. What happened, I think, is Russell lost focus. I go back to what I said in the very beginning. Teams win championships, period. End of story. No quarterback has ever won it by himself, because I have yet to see a Super Bowl where a quarterback plays 60 minutes and throws the ball every down. Never seen it. And I even seen the quarterback throw it and catch it and block for himself. There's a lot of things that take place in a quarterback's success. So that being said, Russell Wilson is a great complement to an offense. He's not your offense. And I think that if they continue down the road they started about middle of the season, where they finally started to implement some different types of runs, like man blocking schemes versus their zone, which they were struggling, and that becomes the foundation of who they are, and Russell complements that, I think it could be very good. Because the one thing Russell Wilson does bring in, nobody, whether you like it, you don't like it, he's got experience. He does have experience, and that experience, there's value in that experience. And if you get him to the area that he was most efficient in when they ran the football, and then he complemented that, that's when he became most deadly. And that would be the goal. I would anticipate that would be the goal, that their running game will be the foundational part of this offense, and then Russell will complement that.
The Bears have stayed busy. They have gone after a backup tight end in Gerald Everett, my favorite number 7 ever to play the tight end position. They have themselves a Rippin to provide depth in the quarterback room, give Caleb Williams somebody to play catch with. And they've added some other guys to the mix. A guy whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, just say amen. They got a guy with a lot of vowels in his name. I will be following this as free agency craziness continues during the next few days here. Lots of big names already scooped up. Chris Jones back in Kansas City, a very happy man with his new deal. What does that mean for their fine cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed? It might mean he's elsewhere. Ooh, would that guy look good in a Bears uniform? But you can't do that because you have given Jalen Johnson a new deal. And that's something I didn't talk about on Tuesday's podcast. I'm going to get into that in depth again next week. As we break down the deal, it would have been cheaper for the Bears to give him consecutive franchise tags. His deal is front end loaded. He's going to wind up making more money up top than he is on the back end of the deal. Hopefully he'll catch the ball when it's thrown to him this time. Thanking my guest, Merril Hoge, for joining me today to talk about his thoughts on the upcoming NFL draft. The executive producer of the Mac podcast is Sam Michael. Adam Delavitt is the guy who runs the show for Bet Rivers Podcast Network. Randy Merkin takes care of all the guests. And we also thank Alex Pastor and Troy Mocker for everything they do. Have a great weekend. I'm Dan McNeil. See you.